So, what excitement do we have lined up for today?
Well, might as well start with the intro.
Oh, I've got ketchup on my sleeve.
That's because you're
That's
a
the thing, that's
disgusting
what it is.
human being. It might be blood.
Yeah, I've got some butter down my t-shirt too. I'm just a
It might be
mess.
juices.
What kind of juices?
I don't know.
Go on then, get on with it.
This feels like it's going to be a bit of a more slow-paced episode than usual, but it is. Are you aware of what the subject is just before we begin?
Yes.
Okay. And, well, it is a bit more sensitive than it would be usually, so I just want to check that you're okay.
Only if you give a shit. Okay to talk.
Yes. Like, if you're
Down
okay
to talk. DTT.
to broadcast this.
Well, everybody knows I'm fucked up anyway, so.
Okay. Then on with the show. Hello,
But it wouldn't be the same if I didn't interrupt you. Oh, fucking hell. Do you know, I'm going to get pissed so quickly tonight because I'm so tired. I don't know why I'm tired. I'll let you start, sorry. Carry on.
because you're fat now.
Yeah, that is true.
It's half a joke
What?
that you're fat.
Well, the gym's shut, and
Fair
that makes
enough.
me eat loads of shit as well.
Fair enough.
And I'm working at a pizza delivery company
Well,
that gives me free pizza every time I work.
Yeah. Anyway.
People keep baking things and sending them to us.
Yeah. Hello, Internet. I'm Fireball.
And I'm the Orbiter! War!
The more over the top that introduction is, the more in pain you are.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. We're here.
Well, I'm here, you're there.
Welcome to Breaking Bollocks episode 58.
I don't know. No, I think it might be 59. I don't know.
I shall check the calendar.
Pre-preparation. Is it pre-preparation or does the pre part of preparation itself imply pre? And if that's preparation, what is paration? If it's
Fuck off.
if
Just
it's
fuck off.
preparation.
Twit. It is 59.
I beg your pardon.
This is a
Could you repeat
disaster.
that, please?
No. Right. Yes, this is...
What the fuck?
That's not the camera that's recording, just for some reason the other camera went beeping.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
I think it got bored. Of
Yeah,
something,
maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Anyway,
Committed suicide.
shall we get started with news?
Is there any? I mean, is it just the same shit? different
Well,
day?
it's kind of easy to see that as it just sort of all blending into one splurge. But it had been a while since I'd actually checked on like what the figures are worldwide, and I think we're currently, as a country, the United Kingdom, second in terms of deaths.
Well,
In terms of total deaths, we are second in the world, only behind the US.
and it all depends on how you measure it, because I know these. The government have said, I think quite rightly, that the best way to actually ascertain the true, because it's not always obvious who has died from it. They say that the best way to get the true figure is to compare like for like mortality rates, so excess mortality rates from previous years. And if you do that at the moment, we're about 50,000 in excess of previous mortality rates.
Yeah. I mean, there's Worldometers, which has sort of, I think, quite a lot of useful information on this, but I mean, all the information here is just based on basically news stories that they get.
Fucking hell.
So it's just basically what's available to them. So.
USA's going for it, aren't they?
Yep, and I mean, yesterday actually, I was on a big like video call with loads of people for like a mental health thing. I found it online and just sort of joined up to that. And a lot of them are from America, and a lot of them are saying there's no lockdown where they are, but they're going back to school like in a week or something.
It's a bit of a different sort of attitude to. I mean, I'm at the stage now where I'm kind of just being a spectator, really.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the only way to kind of cope with it, really.
It kind of feels like at this point, we don't really have any. I mean, generally with the news, we don't really have any power to change anything, so it's kind of all
and
a bit of an exercise in futility to just watch the news go by.
Depressing as it might be to put it this way, at the end of the day, there's probably too many humans on the planet anyway. I mean, it is a bit of it's a virus versus virus situation to me, because this occurred to me the other day, and I know that I apologise if anybody's been affected by this, lost anyone. I do know of one person that's lost someone in it, and it must be a horrible thing to happen. But it occurred to me the other day that the biggest problem that we've got at the moment is, do we save lives, or do we save lives from the coronavirus, or do we save the economy? And it's like a balancing act. And obviously there are potentially deaths that will and are being caused by the struggling economies and the poverty that's being caused by everything being shut down. But this is when it occurred to me that our society, really, we've got two options. Well, three maybe, I don't know. But it's just our society is built on consumerism.
Yeah.
On consuming. And that's the Matrix thing, isn't it? The human race we've built a society that is based on consuming resources. And the only way for me, I think the only way to eradicate this virus until there's such a thing as a vaccine would be to completely shut the whole system down and rebuild it from scratch. And a lot of people can't even imagine how that would look.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk of sort of going back to normal, but I think something that a lot of people are quite annoyed about with this is like, well, no, let's not go back to normal, because that was pretty fucked as well.
Well, I think there
let's move forward from this and
there are some
better.
things that are going to change, like more people using cycling to work and walking to work and stuff like that. That's happening a lot in London apparently, and cars are being banned from lots of areas that they weren't banned from before, just so that the public transport network can cope with social distancing. At the moment, but it's all in an effort to get the economy moving again, and it's like that is our biggest problem, is that everything relies on this GDP figure. Everything relies on consuming things,
endless growth.
Yeah, and it's like that. The only thing that does that, as is said in the Matrix, is a virus. So,
Well, I don't think that seeing coronavirus as some sort of cure to capitalism is going to get us very far, because inevitably, I think when this is all over, people are going to want to go back to what they consider to be normal. I mean, some people will want change, but I feel like we're kind of doomed to repeat ourselves, because there's been loads of pandemics in the past like this, and we haven't learned really from them to this time. I mean, we've done some new things, and it's the first time we've really had a worldwide lockdown. But that's mainly because of the severity of the situation.
I suppose it's It's not going to be a polarized case either, is it? That you either do everything you can to save lives and eradicate the virus, or you try to keep the economy going or get the economy back up and running. It's not one or the other. But in order to, if you're going to do a balancing act, you're still going to lose a lot of lives. You might be able to slow it down, but there's still going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, is that in the hope that somewhere along the line a vaccine will come about? Because what if that doesn't happen?
Right. Well, unless it very rapidly grows beyond anything we've ever seen before, like that's pretty unlikely that they won't be able to find a vaccine eventually. It's just, the time frame's looking at mid next year at the earliest.
Mm-hmm. Although, I've just read a news article in the last hour that said that the government are saying that if the latest vaccine tests are successful, that we could have, I think, 30,000 or 30 million vaccines ready by September. I know there's a big difference between that, but it's like, that's not going to happen unless they're taking risks, unless, they're prepared to gamble that it's not going to cause.
But I mean, the main news recently has been that in the UK at least, they have tried to sort of lift lockdown, but also at the same time not doing that, and the messaging's been very confused as to what you're actually supposed to do.
I need to correct you there. In England.
Oh yeah, in England, but that's where most people in the UK are, so that does make a difference.
But this is something that Starstuff mentioned, which is I totally agree with, is that Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland have refused to go down that line. We're still all being pretty safe about it, really cautious. So, what happened to this whole argument about us being a united kingdom? Because it's England that's going a separate way now.
Yeah, well, I think when a lot of the unionists espouse that view, they are talking about England leading the way there. But, I mean, as far as I've seen it, at least at the start of when things were beginning to lock down, our government was amongst the first, in the UK. They were announcing things ahead of the UK government, and it seemed that they were following.
Well, since pretty much near the beginning, Scotland have been including care home deaths in the figures, whereas England have only started doing it in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but there's a weird thing with so they announced would have been last week, maybe a couple of weeks ago, that they were gonna allow a partial lift of the lockdown. A lot of the tabloid press seemed to respond with "Ooh, happy Sunday! Oh, we all get to go out! Yay!" And that's not what that means. Don't do that. Also, weirdly, there was something to do with VE Day, and people were mad that they couldn't go and sunbathe for that. It's celebrating the end of a war feels a bit weird in itself.
Well,
it should be a day of reflection.
Yeah, the way you put it, I would definitely agree with. I agree that it's good to remember these tragedies happening, but the idea of becoming very nationalistic about it is kind of completely hitting the opposite of the point, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, those wars were started because of rampant nationalism. If you're talking about, most wars are started because of rampant nationalism, actually.
So for us to all come out waving Union Jacks and singing "God Save the Queen," and it's kind of, we're just perpetuating that cycle, really. But
also, just a note generally on that idea of wars, and this is a note generally on particularly US language about fighting crises, is they repeatedly call it a war, and I've seen it as well in the UK. I think Boris Johnson said something along the lines of, "Oh, it's like you're being fought by an invisible mugger." I was like, "What? That's not how anything works." I think,
but that whole imagery of the NHS being the front line.
Yeah,
stuff.
calling it a war or using the language of war essentially means that those lives lost are counted as sacrifices and as brave, and not as a failure of the government that's not caused this, but failed those people that have died.
Plus, I think there's a kind of an insinuation that, or there's an assumption that if you're in a war, then your opponent, your enemy, if you like, has intention, has a purpose, whereas a virus is just a naturally occurring thing that we, like with everything else, we have to learn to live with it. The idea of killing it off is problematic, I think. I mean, bearing in mind that this is a coronavirus, and the common cold is a coronavirus, which we've still, after all this time, still got no way of. I mean, we can treat it, but there's no vaccination for it. There's no way to stop it catching a cold.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think influenza's a coronavirus, but I think common cold's a bacteria, isn't it?
I thought that the coronavirus wasn't technically an influenza. I think that's why when people have been saying, "Oh, it's just another flu," it's actually not a flu. That's what I thought, but I might be wrong.
Oh, it is a viral infection. It might be a coronavirus. Yeah, that it does say. I don't know. There'll be a variety of colds that you get.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's
coronavirus.
Another
is one of
problem
them,
with this is that suddenly
that'd be like COVID-2 or something.
Everyone's expected to understand quite complex, like, virology and epidemiology, words that most people probably haven't heard of before this crisis.
The other thing is as well that in terms of any strategy for dealing with it, you've got to kind of factor into the whole thing idiots.
Yeah.
Like the 40 people that were out in Hyde Park protesting against the lockdown. And I dread to think how many people will refuse to take the vaccine when it comes out. And to be honest, I think there'll be some justified caution around actually taking a vaccine if it comes out too quickly. Because if it hasn't been put through the usual rigorous testing.
I mean, it will have been, at least I would imagine, in this country.
Not if they bring it out in September like the government's saying.
Yeah, well, the government's talking out of its arse, isn't it?
Does that happen?
Generally, a lot of the advisors from the NHS and from various medical organisations in the UK have previously warned the UK government, particularly around Brexit, that what they're doing is making us more vulnerable to a pandemic. But also, in the case that they were like, oh, we need to roll this out like today, and it wasn't safe, people would blow the whistle there.
Yeah. But yeah, like you say, 18 months seems to be I mean, having said that, I mean, we were saying that when this all started, and we're like 2 or 3 months into it now. It's like, where the hell did that go?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe it's halfway
strange.
through May.
It's sort of like, this is probably the closest. I mean, I don't know, climate change probably as well, but
that's a worse problem though, because that happens gradually, and people, it's like that.
It's just sort of
slowly boiling a frog.
Yeah, it's this weird thing of like, it's not anything like what you'd see in the disaster movie. Sure, like the streets are deserted and people are
They're not
angry.
that deserted anymore, though.
Well, yeah,
Even
that's
up here. But what can you do?
I can't remember what I saw it on. I think it might have been Charlie Brooker did another one of those wipes. Did an
yeah, Mum was saying
antiviral
something
one.
about that. I wouldn't mind having a watch of that.
I think it might have been in that. It might have been in like another comedy program. That people are scared that coronavirus might halt the destruction of the planet by capitalism by another 10 years or so.
They're scared about it.
He was joking.
All right, okay. But yeah, where's my brain gone?
Up your bum.
I thought it smelled a bit.
In a bit more, I guess, fun news, I attempted to cut a slit in my eyebrow. People that are audio people won't be able to see this, but it doesn't look good.
Oh, I hadn't noticed, actually. What does that denote?
I just thought it looked cool.
Oh, right, okay. It's not like a secret sign to other people who have slits in their eyebrows.
Well, I think it's kind of like a punk thing and also pretty gay, but...
I thought it was more just something that kind of some people it happened to because they're like a scar or something.
No, loads of people cut it into their eyebrows.
Do you know once? And this must have been maybe about 10 years ago. I was I was plucking my eyebrows to try and thin them out a bit because I don't know if you've noticed they'll be able to see that I still have to do it because I turn into. Have you heard of Ted Heath?
I can Google him.
Yeah, my eyebrows go a bit wild if I don't kind of. So anyway, I took it a bit too far and ended up just shaving them all off completely. And I went to a wedding where I was playing at and turned up and for ages they were just like looking at me going, "There's something different about you. I don't know what it is." And then eventually one of them worked out that I had no eyebrows. It's just like pissing ourselves laughing. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've got sort of a problem where with the way that I've done it, it's both too obvious and not obvious enough. So it just looks slightly off. Because like it's not a clean cut, so that the hair's still slightly there where the cut is. Also, because of the way my eyebrows are, sometimes the outer bit's a lot lighter than the inner bit. So in certain lights, it just looks like I've cut half my eyebrow off.
Looks like Mum's been at you again.
Yeah.
Like, what was that before we went to Disney that she tried to cut your hair?
Yeah. I remember because I had to wear hats to cover up my shame.
Have you got hats that big? So, any more news of the news variety? Who knows? Oh, Shanghai Disneyland's opened up again.
All right.
And I think there's various parks are going to be opening up. So yeah, this is the thing. America's got a very different attitude to it. I think it's probably no accident because they are a even more consumer based society than the UK. But there is what the fuck?
I sneezed.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more concern there, I think, about the people who are suffering because they're not working. Because, and I suppose, actually, they probably are suffering more there than they are here because I don't know what whether they have anything. Well, they have some kind of benefits system, don't they? But not.
They have social security.
Yeah.
Which is fairly lackluster. I mean, I think
but
ours
they don't have
is fairly...
an NHS or anything, do they?
No, so like, if you don't have health insurance... I mean, they do have Medicare, but like, that's for very select few people under like really specific circumstances, and like it's weird.
Well, Universal City Walk's open again now, and they're taking people's temperatures on their way in and stuff. And I've seen conversations with people that have been along to it, and they're saying that as soon as the park's open, they're going to get in there. But it's in that kind of attitude of trying to support the workers, and it's like, well, I kind of get
you're putting them at danger by forcing them to go to work, though.
But then at the same time, are they going to be forced to go to work anyway? You know, if the place opens.
If the place opens, but the point is that the government should have stuff enforced where those places have to stay shut, so the insurance companies can't just say, oh, well, you could open if you wanted to, you could open. And then they don't have to put their own workers at risk there.
But how long can that be maintained? I mean, if we're talking about 18 months till a vaccine's available, can you keep the whole world shut down that long?
Not the whole world, but it wouldn't really necessarily need to be that. But if you're at the epicenter of a pandemic,
yeah, I mean, for me,
I mean, I'm not an expert on this sort of stuff, but from a moral perspective, I would try and keep everything as closed as possible to maintain safety for everyone. Because
I know. I mean, it's not really financially an option, but I'm not going to be looking to go back anywhere like that until things are pretty much back to normal. Because the amount of money you spend, I mean, I know your sister was planning a trip. They'd only put down like a small deposit for it, so they've decided not to go. And that was in October this year, which I'm sure it'll all be open and be able to, they'd be able to go. But paying that amount of money to get such a distorted experience where you can't interact with the characters, you can't, everything's no parades and shows, and it's just like it's not the same. And I know they're trying to do their best to kind of just open up so people can go, but at the end of the day, it's not the same.
And also at the same time, like, I get that it's great for loads of people, but like, have some priorities, please. Like, it's not.
I suppose we're getting to
like getting a haircut or going to a theme park with loads of people at it isn't as important as your personal health.
We've had the issue, which we seem to have dealt with fairly well, about key workers. That there's a certain level of society keeping going that needs to be maintained, so that people are fed and essential services keep going and stuff like that. But then so much of our economy now is based on the leisure industry. That, I've got a funny feeling even though it would have been a very different situation, but say if this had happened 50 years ago, there wouldn't have been nearly as many people that would have had to stop working, because most people were probably in fairly essential jobs.
Well, there's been a weird thing as well about, apparently under new guidance, it lets cleaners go to work.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but like, I don't think a cleaner is an essential service. You can do that work yourself, and not put anyone at danger in that situation.
It depends what you mean by a cleaner. I mean, I would say that cleaners are. When you said that, I thought, well, why have they not been going to work all the way through this? Because keeping things clean is vital at the moment.
Yeah, but like, I mean, people's like house cleaners, like,
yeah, but then you've got
and most people that can actually afford to have cleaners, like for instance, the NHS obviously have cleaners that have been very essential. Absolutely.
So how do you subdivide that profession, if you like, if that's subcontracted out?
Where it's necessary, like. I think it's sort of
This is where it becomes difficult, because you've got to define what's necessary, and that's different for different people.
what's necessary to keep people safe. Like in an NHS, if you're an NHS cleaner, the cleaning that you're doing is like making the hospital more sanitary to put less people. It's saving lives doing that.
Yeah.
So really, only the things that would really save people's lives would be necessary in that situation.
What about a home sort of house cleaner of somebody who's disabled?
Well, that would probably come under, in that situation, like a carer doing that.
Yeah.
And that would be considered an essential service, because some people's living situation can't continue without a carer.
Yeah. You know what I mean, though? There's so many different industries that have so many different kinds of the same job that sometimes to define clearly is really kind of complicated.
But it's... But the sort of thing is, I found a lot of people online saying about, oh, well, I've been really busy, so I can't clean my own house. I need to invite this person over. And, like, they're doing them a favour by giving them work. But sort of like, they shouldn't be forced to work anyway. And
yeah, what about, say, a nurse who's working long hours and doesn't have the time to keep their house clean?
I mean... You sort of get like a hierarchy of needs here.
Yeah.
Where like the base things, like you're going to have to go without some things for some time because it's the best we can do. But I think it's generally richer people who can afford cleaners in the first place that are mad that their cleaners can't come over anymore, so they're having to clean. But under new guidance, cleaners can come over.
Right.
I would imagine most NHS nurses can't afford their own cleaners.
So let's let cleaners work who don't work for rich people.
Well, essentially, it's this sort of situation.
Seriously, I'm saying let's just fuck the rich.
Well,
let's just take their money and redistribute it.
Yes, I would agree that, but like, it's the situation where it very quickly becomes clear that people have lived very different lives, where suddenly, you know, like, not having your house cleaned by another person and in perfect order is a travesty, where, like, our government's ignored people sleeping on the street for years.
Yeah, what's happening with the homeless people at the moment? Because they were being put up in hotels, weren't they? Like Travelodges and stuff like that. I don't know if it was Travelodges, but they got them off the streets and they were putting them up in hotel rooms.
Because they're way more risk. This pandemic's affecting poorer people way more than... loads of people keep saying, oh, it's a great equalizer, but it is affecting poor people, it's affecting ethnic minorities more.
Shall we lighten the mood a bit and get onto the subject?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you can read, you can see what the subject of the podcast is. But if you happen to be Craig, the subject of this podcast is depression.
Yay!
Yeah!
Now, I'm assuming we're not talking about a meteorological depression or an economical depression. Or should we include those in our discussion?
That is a word, isn't it? It just doesn't sound like a word. I think it was because I thought you were going to go economical.
I can if you want.
I'll play that.
And I can't.
Exactly. Yeah. This is going to be, just sort of a general... and wouldn't normally do this, but this is a fairly sensitive subject. Just a sort of forewarning.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be talking about maybe some upsetting stuff. So if you are dealing with any mental health issues yourself, sometimes hearing other people talking about it can help, sometimes it can't. I will leave that up to you guys to judge, but just be aware if you're the sort of person that's affected by this.
Trigger warning.
Yeah, genuinely, not in any sort of. I mean, that's why they're there.
Well, actually,
for this sort of thing.
Even if you're not, be aware that under current circumstances, you might already noticed. Like for instance, last week I burst into tears after doing the washing up.
I didn't
like it just
see that.
Came out of the. Well, it didn't come out of the blue, but it was just kind of the kind of situation that wouldn't normally.
Yeah.
I would normally be quite. I'm feeling more stressed at the moment than.
Yeah. But
than usual, and that's weird because I'm actually. There's less demands on me at the moment, so.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, but like at the same time, I mean, it's easy to like sort of put that pressure on yourself where you're like, oh,
words.
Yeah, where you're not expected to do as much, and so feel like shit for feeling like shit.
Yeah, stress is nothing. Well, it is related to, but it's not just about what pressures you're under from the outside. It's more, I think, about what pressures you put yourself under from the inside, really, isn't it? What your self expectations are and stuff. One thing I would say, actually, before we carry on, I'll say that I have suffered from depression on and off pretty much most of my life, certainly most of my adult life, but I would say, looking back, even though it wasn't really diagnosed as early, probably from teenage years onwards. I think generally the natural order of teenage years is fairly depressed and stressed because of the amount of changes that are going on.
Yeah.
But a lot of people come through that and come out of it. Some people maybe don't have it as much as others, but certainly most of my adult life I've been on and off antidepressants. And I don't know why that might be.
I mean, this, even though the subject title is depression, I think this is just going to be generally more about mental health in general. Because I mean, depression's a weird. It's complicated, and loads of different factors affect it at the same time. So you can't really talk about it without talking about what's actually causing it, and sometimes that can be other mental health issues.
Yeah. And I think sometimes maybe, I mean, for me, it's been a case of, and it'll continue to be a case probably for the rest of my life, of recognizing, some of it can be caused by past events and stuff, but you kind of get to know yourself as you get older, and you kind of get to know what you're kind of susceptible to and what's going to work for you and what's not. I over the last week, since that kind of mini breakdown, I suppose, that was when I collapsed after doing the washing up, I've gone back to doing my meditation sessions. I do like sort of 10 to 20 minutes a day. I'm finding that really helpful. And I've also just done my 6th day in a row of practice.
Well done.
I don't have the gym though. That really helps normally, but I think maybe, I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but there is a certain amount of maintenance required, I think, in mental health.
Yeah.
That most people, or a lot of people, it's probably getting better now, but a lot of people don't recognise. I mean, any other part of your body, okay, maybe people aren't best with diets and keeping fit, but say, for instance, your teeth. People clean their teeth to keep them healthy. You know, people tend to forget about the brain, and that, you know, everything you do and everything you witness is going in to that organ, and that organ is in control of your entire life, really.
Yeah.
So it's important to kind of look after it, and it's not an easy thing to do when it's you've got to use it to look after itself.
And I mean, a lot of people are surprised by this, but I think stress is one of the leading causes of like lost years of life.
Yeah. There was I read a book when I was younger called The Attitude Factor, and they did. It referred to like a social experiment that they did in an old people's home, and they divided people into 4 categories, and measured over a long period of time the life expectancy of those people. And there was smokers who got stressed a lot, smokers who were relaxed about, you know, carefree about life, non-smokers who got stressed a lot, and non-smokers who were relaxed about life and didn't get anxious about things. And I think they said the people the non-smokers who were stressed tended to have a lower life expectancy than the smokers who were relaxed and carefree, if you like.
Yeah.
So, which is not great if you're trying to give up smoking.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of that in itself is stressful information to receive. That, you know, when you're stressed, you're potentially losing years of your life.
Yeah, that's worrying.
I mean, I don't think I'm diagnosed technically, but I almost certainly have anxiety and depression, based on what I've heard other people describing them as. I mean, they're sort of often paired, because the anxiety is when you're like worrying about stuff, and it's a lot more active, and then the depression's feeling shit afterwards.
Because I've known for decades that I've suffered with depression, but it's only really the last few years that I've realised that I've suffered from anxiety as well.
I mean, I think they're quite commonly paired. I don't think you necessarily have one if you have the other.
No.
Anyway,
one of the things that happens with the meditating aspect of it is being able to kind of pop out of your thoughts, if you like, and just kind of, rather than being trapped in them, being able to just kind of observe them and let them pass, and you know, kind of being outside of, almost like being an outside observer of your own mental state.
I tried that, but like way too much.
What you get out of your head.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, that probably isn't healthy to think about, and why are you doing that? And then I'm like, are you going to change any of that? Probably not.
You start judging yourself then.
I have like full-on therapy sessions with my own psyche, and then I just start calling myself an asshole. I'm great.
But that's what I mean. That's not really. I mean, that's getting caught in another thought bubble, because if you start judging your own thought processes, you're just in a different thought process then. Whereas if you just kind of,
I start trying to observe my thoughts, and then that observer becomes a character in its own right, and my thoughts like go, oh, here's that asshole over there judging everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to play at least part of a philosophy tube video. We may have to edit out a fair portion here. And it is on suicide and mental health, although some of the words have signs in them because the YouTube algorithm doesn't like people talking about that. Okay. Yay! But yeah, we'll edit this. It is relatively long. We might not watch the whole video. And we'll try and talk about it. I guess it's just to find a place to start off talking about more things here, because it's quite a tricky subject to approach in places. Anyway, we just watched most of that video there. I think it's just like some credits at the end that we didn't watch. Any thoughts? I've watched it before, so I want your thoughts first.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Yeah. Basically, in this video, if you have not watched it, it's actually part of a series of videos. They all have this on this channel. They all have this star mark, sort of a black star it's meant to be, which interestingly I think is actually one of David Bowie's last albums. But anyway, this is basically a series where he plays the character. It's basically a series on mental health, and he has this character of what?
I don't know nearly enough David Bowie stuff.
No, he's a strange. Several characters from what I've heard. Basically he plays a cosmonaut, and it's this idea of being a cosmonaut back in the 60s. You go up there, you'd be on your own, and have very little separating your capsule from
I have a friend who's currently sectioned.
a void of space. Yeah, a lot of the videos about sort of how mental health, particularly suicide, is just treated as something that only mental people think about.
It's like,
and have to deal with.
Well, actually, one thing, it seems trivial, but one glaring example of a situation where it's clearly not a sign of insanity is Spock in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. That, I know that's fiction, but that scenario where you're...
All fictions, all art, I guess, is an attempt at expressing a part of the human experience, a Vulcan experience in that case.
But I don't know. It's difficult to. I don't think I've ever been suicidal. I have. I mean, they ask this question, don't they? Have you ever considered suicide? Like in therapy sessions and stuff.
And
have you ever thought about suicide?
I find that question quite strange, because sort of, I don't know who hasn't.
I'd be very surprised if there was anyone out there who hasn't. I think to me it would be more worrying if you hadn't.
See, I think a lot of people get these, but particularly people with anxiety get these more. They're called intrusive thoughts. So, like, for example, you're standing at the edge of a cliff or like a train station platform, or you could get like the urge to jump, or sometimes I've had it where I'll just suddenly get the urge to punch this random person in the face, and it's not because they've done anything wrong to me. It's not because I actually want to punch them in the face.
I think it's maybe the wrong question.
It's sort of catastrophizing. It's my brain worrying about, what if I did? What if I did? Don't do that.
I've had this numerous times. Is when you're driving a car, and
that terrifies me.
You're driving up to a T-junction and you're accelerating and you're thinking, what would happen if I just carry on accelerating and drive straight into that house across the road?
I think it's natural for most brains to think about this to some extent, but there is a point at which it becomes quite disturbing.
This is where I think the differentiation should be made, is that I think that question about have you ever considered something isn't the right question. I think the right question is, have you ever found yourself in danger of actually doing it? Have you ever felt like you are going to do it? I'm not asking you. On mic.
I'm gonna talk a bit about my own mental health now. This might get a bit emotional. I mean, I won't go too much into depth as to sort of the reasons behind it, because it's quite complicated and there's a lot of personal stories there that aren't for public consumption, if I'm honest. But I have had suicidal thoughts, serious suicidal thoughts. I've hurt myself before. But a strange thing, and I was thinking about this earlier today, sort of about what to say for this episode, is when I've hurt myself in the past, there's never really been anything permanent there, if that makes sense. Like, I've hit myself, but like not hard enough to leave a bruise. I don't know if I could hit myself hard enough to leave a bruise.
I think there's distinctions to be made here between different kinds of self-harm, because I haven't done those kind of things in the way that I would assume most people mean when they talk about self-harm. I have lost control of my temper and hurt myself rather than lashing out at somebody else. I've kind of I've been so frustrated and so angry that I've actually hit my own hand against the side of a piece of furniture and hurt myself that way. Out of frustration, but not. I think there are other forms of self-harm in terms of something inside you deliberately jeopardizing things because you don't think you deserve.
Yeah, and it's more of a, and I don't think you could really call it a suicide attempt, because there was no danger there of me actually dying. But it fucked me up emotionally, and I think a part of that was intentional. I have attempted to drown myself before, and
that's one of the most difficult.
Well, yeah, it's sort of the thing of like, there was no situation that would actually lead to my death. So in that case, even though I was doing that whilst thinking about killing myself, it's never anything permanent. I'm causing that pain to myself in an emotional way.
Yeah.
Like the actual like pain that I would feel like from getting the water in my eyes or in my nose and swallowing it, like that's not the pain there. But the pain's that I actually tried that, and that fucks with you.
See, all of these things for me fit into a category of, rather than trying to end it all, a lot of the sort of self-harm that I've done has been in terms of punishing myself.
Yeah.
And it's a cycle, because you can begin by doing something that you shouldn't, and then you kind of judge yourself for it, and I mean, I couldn't possibly claim to have given you the perfect upbringing, so I can't say that you haven't suffered any sort of traumas or anything during childhood, because
No, I mean,
everybody has suffering that they go through. And
Yeah.
it's not just, it's not just my responsibility anyway.
but I mean, from my perspective, you've done what you can. But to be honest, as he did say in that video, a lot of doctors were saying that people just have shit life syndrome sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's not because of anything that you could do to help that. It's just, sometimes the hand we're dealt in life is a pretty shit one.
I thing is though, I think like with stress in general, I think it's not. Obviously, there are some people whose hands are definitely shit, and we've been through a fair amount with health issues and stuff over the years. But there's no doubt that there are people a lot worse off than us who don't.
At the same
suffer.
time, though, there's people a lot better off than us as well. Like, I don't think it's helpful comparing, because at that point you're sort of ignoring what you could actually do in that situation. It's like
The other problem with that as well is that you're not comparing reality with reality. You're comparing your perspective of other people's realities.
and
you've only got your own experience to compare with.
there's a thing called I think it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
It's like, I could, to use an example, I said earlier that I've suffered from depression most of my adult life, and I could look back on my childhood and see the sort of broken home and the violence of my dad being, as we now know, he was bipolar, and all of the shit that happened when I was a kid. I could see that as a cause, but fucking hell, my beer does this to my brain. I've forgotten what I was going to say now, and it was really important.
Well, it does come back to you.
Yeah, hopefully.
There's this idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
There's 5 levels, and it's sort of the idea of it being a pyramid. You can't have the things at the top without having the things at the bottom below it to
that was the thing.
Establish a secure base for that. Okay, what was it?
It was that, having only got your own experience to compare it with, certainly as a child, you don't know what this so-called normal is.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is something that I have thought about in the past, is that when people have suffered earlier on in life, especially in childhood, some kind of traumatic experience, it only seems to affect their mental health when they come to the realization, or when they learn from society that what happened to them isn't normal. Do you know what I mean? When I was a kid and I saw this violence going on around me, I didn't know that was there was nothing about it that kind of that was my normal.
I guess
it wasn't until much later as I grew into be a teenager and into early adulthood that I learned that wasn't normal, and that was what that had a really had an impact on me, because it was like I didn't realize.
Well, there's a difference between normal and okay there.
Yeah.
The situation that, or at least from what you've described, the situation that you were witnessing of other people wasn't okay. They were in danger, and at times you were maybe in danger.
But at that age, at that time, I didn't know anything else. There was no right way to compare it with. So it wasn't until later on that I began to suffer the consequences of having gone through that, because I realised that hadn't been okay. At the time, I wasn't even thinking about whether it was okay. It was just life. You know, when you're a young kid, you're not thinking about whether or not your life is just. You're not getting onto those levels of thinking yet. You're just living life as it is.
I guess to some extent, but I mean,
like when you were 5 and 6, you weren't thinking about whether or not your life was.
I mean, actually,
fair. Or if things were.
I mean, this is pretty fucked. Some of my earliest memories of, actual like clear thoughts, and this one sticks out to me in particular. I must have been 6, maybe 7, and because of my anger issues at that age, I thought I would be in prison before I was 20.
Yeah,
I genuinely thought that at that age, because I couldn't see a way of dealing with my issues at that time.
but are you sure, or is it possible that you might have thought those things because that was what the people around you were telling you?
I mean, in some way, but not directly. Like, you can't get.
I'm sure at that age, the way you were behaving, I'm sure me and Mum probably had said to you that if you behaved like that as an adult, you would get arrested. And
Maybe at
so
some point,
there's a question about whether or not it was appropriate for us to. I mean, obviously, we had to try and bring you up in a way that was going to benefit you somehow, and not just let you think that was okay behavior, but maybe there were ways that we could have vocalized that to you better. Maybe us making you scared that you were going to end up in prison wasn't the best way of dealing with it.
No, maybe it wasn't, but I don't know. Quite a lot of the time, and I've had this because I have been to therapy, not a lot of sessions, if I'm honest, and unfortunately mental health is pretty underfunded in this country, and probably in a lot of other countries.
Another thing as well is that nobody knows you better than you know yourself. The problem, I mean, I've been to counsellors and I've been to psychotherapy as well in the past, and it wasn't their input. I think that it's a bit like that Samaritans thing.
Yeah,
that they don't actually offer any advice. They're there to listen, and it's like you do the fixing yourself, because you know yourself better than anyone else does.
I think the point with that is, if you're at the level where you require therapy, is that the idea is that it is impairing normal function, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to achieve anything beyond normal function by going to therapy, you don't really get very far. You can't be cured through therapy.
But that's the thing that he was saying in the video, isn't it? That the problem with that is that you have to define normal.
And a lot of the time that has resulted in calling people that aren't normal as such insane. Or
looking back to the way things were up until the late 20th century, in our country at least, and probably still is, definitely still is in some places in the world, being a homosexual was seen as, and it's a difficult one when you start to look at the philosophy of it, because there is no right and wrong. There's the human race attempts to define things, so that society can function.
I guess there's no objective right and wrong, but that doesn't mean that there isn't right and wrong things that happen.
No, but I mean, in terms of whether or not a particular mental trait is an abnormality, or is what you might call insane. Well, that term itself, insanity, refers to the norm of sanity, and sanity is only what is normal in society, isn't it? It's not something outside of the realm of it changes with time.
Right.
Because, some things that were considered insane in the past aren't now.
That doesn't mean that they were right then, though.
No. Nor does it mean that they're right now.
No. But
it's a definition. What I'm meaning to say is that there's not like a set moral correct thing that we're trying to find. Do you know what I mean? There's not like a way things should be that we haven't discovered yet.
It's
just getting closer to.
It's all subjective and based on values, I guess. What we consider to be important.
And I think that's particularly clear when you move between different countries and find that what's criminal in one country isn't in the next. It's grey areas as always, but
I mean, sort of, I don't know. I feel like there's this sort of a thing that a lot of people who haven't really had much experience, to be honest, of probably much anything, but also just like not generally of like mental health issues or of the things that they're talking about, saying like the numbers of autistic people increasing over time. I was like, well, no, that's not technically correct. The number of diagnoses is increasing, or numbers of homosexual people increasing. Well, no, it's the number of people coming out as homosexuals increasing because they're feeling more comfortable coming out in society, or they're more accepted by society and more able to do that and be taken seriously.
I mean, I'm not entirely closed to the idea that there may be elements of both. In that, when you talk about autism, I'm sure in the past there have been a lot more autistic people. I mean, diagnoses weren't made before a certain point,
No.
There's definitely been autism there, but I'm not completely closed to the possibility that it is becoming more prevalent as a result of the progress of modern society. But that's not seeing autism as a fault, if you like. It's acknowledging that it may well be an evolutionary step.
I mean,
and it could actually become an evolutionary step.
Really, anything genetic could, if it increases the likelihood of survival to reproduce.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of natural selection.
Mm.
It doesn't actually necessarily mean that any trait that's developed by society is necessarily by a species is necessarily good for that species. It just means that the individuals with these traits happen to survive more.
Yeah.
So, like, blue eyes is an example of a mutation that has really no effect on has no like positive or negative effect on survival, really. But it had survived more for some reason than other mutations. But really, it with autism, I mean, there are like genetic markers for it, but yeah, that is something. This idea of autism, or really any mental health conditions, they are defined by humans as being either this sort of psychological state, or these sort of traits that are exhibited outwardly, or this sort of genetic markers.
I feel like
because not everyone can get genetically treated. It has to be people that exhibit certain traits, and it usually, because it's become a problem, which is why a lot more boys get a diagnosis of autism than girls, even though the rate's pretty similar.
I feel like one of the big problems society has is an over reliance on language, on words.
What?
I feel like one of the big problems of society is that humans have like an over reliance on words.
That doesn't make any more sense. Just repeating it. Explain, please.
Well, you said what? I thought you hadn't heard me. Words aren't the things that they represent, obviously, but they're also limiting. And anyone who knows anything about like body language will, say that in a conversation there's so much more communication going on than just the words that are being used, and we tend to try to define everything in words.
I mean, I guess I think it's just sort of.
Take homosexuality. Defining
language as solid and unchanging is ultimately unhelpful in a lot of ways.
But take something like homosexuality. It's a label. It's a word that brings with it all the connotations of its kind of recent usage and the way society kind of bandies that word around and uses it. It's not the actual thing that it's meant to be labeling.
Right.
For me, my only completely accurate way of communicating what I'm feeling and how I feel is through music. I can't do it in words.
I can understand that, like expressing yourself in a different way, other than words. I don't know.
A poet might say the same about words. For me, words aren't sufficient to communicate my feelings, to express my emotions.
Okay, just quickly to aid with sort of part of this conversation, there's a Tom Scott video, and he's generally like I think he's like had a degree on linguistics and focuses on that, and also computers. So this might be helpful in our conversation here. It's the hidden rules of conversation. So that was just a sort of little video on sort of the hidden, literally the hidden rules of conversation. But sort of a lot of assumptions that we make whilst having a conversation, where we're sort of trying to achieve something together there of worth, rather than just being obstructive.
Yes. We're supposed to be talking about depression, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's a bit depressing, though.
Sorry.
Do you know something? I'm on antidepressants, fluoxetine, which I think is about the third or fourth time in my life I've been. You tend to be on it for a year or more. I think this has probably been a couple of years getting on for now. But I think it's getting to the point where the doctor mentioned that it may well be that you have to just stay on them.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that as long as it's not doing me any harm. I mean, I have to apply moisturising cream for my skin condition twice daily. I don't have a problem with that. So why should I have a problem with treating my mind?
Well, I've got a wart on my middle finger here. The audio people won't be able to see that, but I just flipped off the camera. And essentially, with a wart, I might pick up an immunity to it at some point in my life. I might die with it. It's to the point where it's just like any care that I give to it is just sort of keeping it from infecting other people and keeping its size down if I want to.
But I think it's getting better, but I think it's worth hammering home that there's nothing wrong with being depressed. There's nothing wrong with having any kind of mental health problem. There's this kind of whole taboo around. I remember when I was going for psychotherapy. I remember somebody at work, my boss at work. I had to tell them, and then somebody else found out, and there was this whole kind of big thing about it, and it's like, it's just like it's bollocks,
Yeah.
You wouldn't be. It's because it's like out of sight and out of mind.
Well, yeah, that's sort of the idea of it being invisible, and I get this with it being sort of autism being an invisible disability. And to an extent, Mum gets that, even though a fair portion of her disability is physical, it's just not clear to see.
Yeah.
On sight, it's not like someone's missing an arm or they can't use their legs.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people who haven't dealt with this, so I guess I think everyone has some form of mental health. I mean, everyone needs to keep on top of their mental health, even if they don't have problems with it. But problems arise when people don't.
For me, the first step, I think, with anything, any condition, mental condition, is acceptance, self-acceptance. Because until you are prepared to not be ashamed of how you feel, you can't move forward and do anything to improve the way you feel, because you're kind of trying to hide it from yourself. You're trying to not feel the way you do, and it's like, well, until you accept that you feel that way and there's a reason you feel that way, you can't work with it. You can't deal with yourself the way things are. You're dealing with the way you think things should be, or the way you think other people think they should be, rather than just seeing the way things are for you at the moment and working from there.
A video recently by ContraPoints, which we've watched before for our podcasts, on, have you heard of cringe culture?
I think so, but summarise.
Sort of this idea of feeling embarrassment for another person.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of the time,
yeah, you do that a lot for me.
Well, there's that.
I know it's tongue in cheek, but
well, there's sort of two types of cringe, where you might cringe like with them. It's sort of like this idea of laughing with someone or laughing at them,
right?
Where you'll feel embarrassed for them, like in a way that you're empathetic to them, and then there'll be a time where they're not self-aware of what's embarrassing there, and you think that they should be.
I would put forward another scenario as well, which is that you may see someone acting in a way that you would feel embarrassed by if it was you that was acting that way.
That's what this is,
and they're well aware of it, and they're not embarrassed by it.
But like the sort of examples that they give is of two people on a talent show, and talent shows are full of this sort of thing because they're leeching off of people's shame and basically capitalizing on their failure, which is kind of fucked, but whatever. But it sort of has someone who's really overconfident and actually compares their singing ability to Freddie Mercury's, which means that you probably instantly have some level of dislike for them because that's a lot to claim, especially since after that they embarrass themselves by singing badly.
The thing is, for me, that is a societally bad thing to do, because if I see that happening to someone else and I'm confident about my performance in some way, I'm instantly made to think, well, what if I'm like that? What if I'm confident about my performance and
musicians' anxiety is just
this is, I have a do you remember Scott?
Yeah,
professional percussionist who I was at college with. He played in West End pit orchestras. He's a professional player, as a career, and even he has the same thing. Even at that level, you have anxiety about what if I go out on stage and I forget how to play, or what if I'm just not good enough? You feel like an imposter. You feel like you're tricking everyone. Like everybody tells you that you're really good at something, and you feel like you fooled them, that you're not really, but you've managed to convince them that you are.
I sort of get an opposite situation where I think people are telling me that I'm good at something just to be nice, and I can't possibly actually be good at it.
Let's face it, we get that with this podcast, surely.
I guess.
I mean, we know there are people who say that they really enjoy this and this is the best podcast that they really enjoy at the moment, and it's like
I see you getting that. I haven't gotten it that much, at least with this podcast. I get it with my own stuff.
Yeah, that's because you don't interact with the network.
I guess, but like, I see you stressing about that as sort of like, oh, we weren't that funny, and oh, it was really awkward, that sort of stuff. I see you stressing about that, but I see a lot of what I've stressed out about other stuff there.
The daft thing is, though, when we're actually recording a podcast, I feel like it's a bit shit. But then when it comes up in my queue and I actually listen back to it, it's like, it's not that bad, actually. But it's always really difficult listening to it from somebody else's perspective, because you know you and you know the person you've lived that conversation. You can't see it from anyone else's perspective.
I mean, I don't listen to our stuff too often. I do sometimes, especially since like I've not been like needing to travel anywhere because of the lockdown.
No, I probably do more recently because I'm doing so much driving at the moment that I get to listen to lots of podcasts now. So.
But yeah, it's sort of.
I don't feel like this one's funny.
No, but it I mean, it isn't. Like, it might be in places. I don't know.
Awkward, maybe.
Yeah, my brain's gone.
Yay!
It's the thing that happened. What was it I was gonna say?
I don't know, because you didn't say it, so I can't remember.
It just goes further and further.
That's what she said. Probe, it's in there somewhere.
Don't say that. I don't know what I was going to say, but like, I think it usually sounds alright, but it is difficult to sort of know what other
That's
people
when you've run
are
out of material, though, isn't it? When
thinking.
you start talking about your own podcast on your podcast.
No, it's that's just self-reflection.
It's disappearing up your own arse.
I feel like you get this idea of like actually talking about yourself as some sort of narcissistic exercise in pointlessness, but like actually
Do you?
sort of reviewing your own I mean, I guess outlook on the world sometimes, but also
It does.
sort of,
It does seem a bit self-obsessed when you find yourself talking about yourself, though.
yeah, but it's worthwhile doing, at least to yourself, to talk to about yourself too.
But we're actually doing it to the world at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, sort of, if you reflect on yourself publicly, that
If you
means
do what publicly?
reflect on yourself.
Oh, right, okay.
Don't know what you thought I said. No. Then you can get some feedback on whether your reflections are correct, I guess. And
Who from?
you're exposing yourself, I suppose.
Oh, fucking hell. That's being a performing artist, that is.
Anyhow,
Have you been having dreams about getting coronavirus?
I haven't.
I regularly get in dreams that involve me contracting the disease.
I had a dream about, this is the depths of running out of things to talk about. I had a dream about,
I have a dream.
I don't know, I was sort of half captured, and I had a wizard friend, and then I started throwing knives at people,
Okay.
and then I gave my wizard friend his clothes back, and
I met a wizard once.
what?
I met a wizard once. Do you remember when I was a projectionist and I got the job as projection support?
And
I used to,
particularly, I was quite young.
I got a job along with another guy for projection support for Scotland and Carlisle, which is
Okay.
a bit of a strange area, but yeah, Scotland and Carlisle were in the same. Anyway, we used to go to other branches, and it would sometimes involve like an overnight stay at like a travel lodge or something, because it was quite a distance. But so because of this, we would be given like a meal allowance, and we'd go out in the evening, and we went out into this pub for a couple of drinks. And there was it was the weirdest, most surreal thing. There was actually a wizard. Well, he obviously thought he was a wizard, but he was there. He had like this, like a staff with like a funny kind of sigil thing on top of it, and like a pointy hat and a gown and stuff. But he wasn't, and a long beard, typical archetype wizard.
Sure you weren't
He
tripping on acid?
Yes, I'm sure. He wasn't in fancy dress. He was like that was just who he was. He was just, we spoke to him, and he was just like, I mean, he didn't cast any spells on us or anything, but it was just a really surreal kind of experience.
Okay.
This was in Hamilton.
What?
This was in Hamilton.
In England?
No,
No, in Scotland.
Hamilton in Scotland,
Okay.
I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe he was tripping on acid.
What? And we weren't really normal human beings.
Well, you clearly aren't, but okay. Anyway, I was talking about cringe culture before this.
Oh, you remembered.
This wasn't what I was talking about. Well, I was talking about, but like this wasn't what I was trying to talk about.
What are you trying to talk about now?
I'm trying to get back to the cringe culture thing, where to the other kind of cringe, other than the sort of feeling embarrassed at someone, where they clearly don't feel embarrassed, but you think they should.
Yeah.
Is like there was someone else there who was, I guess, a lot more humble, and it was clear that they were just there for a bit of fun. That they weren't trying to like be Freddie Mercury or whatever. They just thought, oh, I like to sing, I'll go on this show.
Yeah.
And at that case, you sort of feel like, oh, well, they're exploiting that person by like.
The ironic thing is, though, in that particular arena, on that program, for the time that they're on that screen, regardless of whether it's because they have talent or not, but they are the star of that scene.
Yeah. There's bad attention there, isn't there?
Yes, there is. There most definitely is.
But then there's a sort of a third kind, and this is sort of mutated from
Simon Cowell, you're a cunt, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
It's sort of mutated from the internet being a cesspool of horror, where people feel like embarrassed at somebody who doesn't really have any reason to be embarrassed. They're just not really normal, I guess.
You know Simon Cowell does listen to us, don't you?
Oh. Go fuck yourself. I don't know.
You might have lots of money, but you're very poor.
I always mentally confuse Simon Cowell and Gordon Ramsay. They're just very shouty and very English. Well, Gordon Ramsay, I have actually seen on like other things where he's not like actually talking to other chefs, and he's just talking to normal people with like no expectation of it. He does actually seem okay-ish.
It's just a cunt in the kitchen.
I think it's like that reality TV thing. Everyone acts up and plays a character with that. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, basically, a large portion of this video by ContraPoints is on what she said was possibly the most documented person in history, where loads of people collectively cringing at this person, Christine Chandler, where they've like called her up pretending to be like medical professionals and gotten like layouts of her house, and someone's currently making a series of, I think, possibly up to 100-hour-long videos documenting their life.
There was actually a film a year or two ago about somebody who was quite famous for exactly what you were talking about. I can't remember who it was. Nick will probably be able to, if he does listen to this. It was about an opera singer who came from a rich family.
Yes.
She had lots of money, and she was convinced she was absolutely fantastic, but people were just laughing at her. She got quite famous, didn't she? But
this was an example in the video.
What was her name again?
I don't know.
I still haven't seen that film. I would like to see it, actually.
What was it?
I'm gonna see how teens search. How teens search. Because you keep accusing me of being a. How is that any different from what I would?
It's hard to search.
Singing badly.
5 people who became famous.
That's her.
Yeah, this is the one.
Florence Foster Jenkins. Not Catherine Jenkins.
She wanted to be an opera singer from an early age, but was discouraged by her parents and later by her husband. She performed a handful of concerts in New York. Audience was filled with loyal friends who encouraged her to pursue her dreams, as well as curious music lovers. She could neither sing on key nor keep a rhythm, yet she loved performing, and her recitals included a number of elaborate costumes.
can we finish soon?
Yeah, tickets sold out weeks before a show at Carnegie Hall, and she was enshrined as the worst singer to ever play the venue.
I feel like we should perhaps finish the episode with a clip of her singing.
No.
You don't think that would be insulting, no?
I think it's... well, the reason that I brought this up is this idea of, and this particularly in this mutation of cringe culture on the internet, is a lot of people are ashamed of parts of themselves when they cringe at people. They're worried that...
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
what
like a projection.
What if I was really overconfident and never realised it and everyone was laughing at me behind my back? You know, I need to shoot this person down to make me feel better.
But then some people get to the point where they think, well, yeah, what if people want to laugh behind my back, let them.
Well, I think a fair amount of people who like get cringed at on the internet eventually reach this point where they're sort of like, okay, cool.
I have to say this is something that I think most performing artists have to overcome, and whether or if they're any good, they'll get through it. But you kind of got to go through so much rejection,
yeah,
that you have to learn to try to ignore it, which is difficult. But I suppose there must be signposts along the way. I mean, I say, what if I'm in that category of, you know, being quite confident about my piano playing or whatever. But then there are certain signposts that kind of bear witness to that. There's evidence, you know, people have paid me to play. So you would assume they wouldn't do that if...
Yeah.
But then, you know, did Florence Foster Jenkins really didn't know?
Well, she apparently died a month after that performance at Carnegie Hall and seemed oblivious to it throughout her life.
So she must have had a lot of really nice friends.
Either that or a lot of really nasty ones.
And I suppose in that case, if she was oblivious to it, did it really matter?
I mean, I guess not. I mean, see, a lot of these things with like the sort of mutation of this is that, you know, it'll be people just being themselves without context, suggesting that they have self-awareness or not. It's just them existing, and that in itself is cringeworthy. That's sort of the idea.
Do you know what I think, though? This democratization of art that the internet has brought about, I think, is a good thing, because it doesn't really matter as much anymore if you're any good. People just do it because they want to now.
I guess, but like at the same time, people's lives can be ruined by just enough people deciding that they're going to be dickheads about it.
I suppose that's only going to be a problem if you engage with your audience. I mean, like, I suppose, I mean, it's easy for me to say that because we only have a very small regular audience. But if there were tens of thousands of people listening to this and lots of them got in touch, then obviously it would be much easier for their attitudes to influence how we felt.
I guess.
Are you tiring?
I am.
Yeah, me too.
Wait, let's bring this back to the subject, I think, because I think we drifted a bit from depression.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the video that we watched, a fair amount on it is the idea that, particularly around suicides, people can rationally choose to do that. And that's a scary reality to confront, I guess.
Yeah, the assumption that you have to be insane or irrational to or like be a danger to yourself, as it were.
Quite an interesting part of that, and I never really realised that this quite famous Shakespeare quote was actually referring to suicide.
I didn't actually until, I mean, I hadn't really.
I mean, it might be just an interpretation of it, but I think.
Yeah, but when you put it in the context of what follows it, that line, the to be or not to be.
I haven't actually studied a fair amount of Shakespeare.
I don't know.
I'm vaguely aware.
He did quote quite a lot of what followed it, and it just does seem to fit perfectly.
There's a quite famous line: "To be or not to be, that is the question." Is essentially,
but then going on to talk about shuffling off this mortal coil.
Yeah, rational contemplation of death and inflicting that upon oneself. To be, to exist, or not to be, to not, I guess. I mean, see, that's a weird thing as well, sort of philosophically existing and to not be, it's sort of like, well, you would be in some form, like in other people's minds. You would still exist in their minds even if you're dead.
Yeah, he's getting down to definition now. That's not you, though, is it?
Oh, I guess not.
But then you kind of getting deep into philosophy then, because it's like, well, what is you?
Yeah.
I mean, even your own idea of yourself is not what you actually are. I think the thing with getting back to the sort of mental health aspect of it, the difficulty for me, I think one of the big difficulties is if there is something which is affecting your mind negatively, your mind is that which you experience everything through. Everything you know, your whole universe,
kind of like the wells
is in your mind.
There.
Yeah,
and everything.
It's not
just
like
feels so bleak all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's not like. See, I look at the universe from where I'm sitting here, and on a surface level, there's like me, and there's the outside universe, the outside world. But in actual fact, all of that outside world is contained in my mind. So it's not just the me part of that universe that's going to be poisoned by an illness. It's the whole universe.
Yeah, well, it's sort of the whole universe from your standpoint, but I guess to every individual, the whole universe is viewed as a cone from them, both literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, because I mean, once you get outside of your own mind, you're talking about atoms. It's like your perception of the universe is within you. It's an interpretation that's coming to you from outside, but. I mean, if I use an example in my experience, when I came to the end of a long-term relationship that had been quite bad for me, it was really upsetting. But I remember going and sitting in my car and crying my eyes out. But it was a really rainy day and dark clouds and stuff, and it felt like the whole of everything that I knew just felt really dark and intensely kind of painful. Not just myself sat in the car, but like, the sky just seemed darker and everything.
Yeah, the weather here can be pretty depressing at times.
Yeah, it wasn't here.
Well, the weather in Britain in general can be. I mean, and that's not all that's causing that, obviously, because there are clear events there. Yeah. I mean, there's this idea of seasonal depression, but...
Don't they have to do more to combat that sort of thing in these really far north places where they have like 6 months of dark and then...
Well, yeah, like, I think in Iceland, they have to drink fish oil and stuff to keep their brains from going funny, because being in darkness for that long fucks with your head.
Yeah. there was a film. I can't remember what it was called, but when I was at the cinema, and it was about that. It was basically somewhere really far north, and there was these really bad things that were happening. But it was like a 6-month night. You know. It was,
Yeah, there's a good game on that, which I might feature on the channel at some point. Near Death. Essentially, you're stranded in Antarctica in the winter.
yeah.
Where in the Antarctic winter, where it is just like weeks upon weeks of darkness, and it's like in the 80s, so there's very few people there, and you sort of have to.
I've certainly noticed a difference.
It's really tense
here, living here, as opposed to down in Northamptonshire, in the way that it kind of there is. And I suppose this must be even worse if you're in one of these places that's dark all the time during the winter. There's almost like a foreboding that comes before it as well. You know it's coming. You know that long night is coming. It's like when we're heading towards winter here, you know that you're approaching a time when it's going to be dark.
Kind of think that's sort of
between
how
3 and 4 o'clock.
Christmas evolved, because sort of just people really needed something just happy to break up those winter.
I mean, I love this time
Blues.
of year up here, especially for the next month or two as well, because it never gets. As long as it's not cloudy at night, there's always light in the sky, even at like 1, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And
it is slightly. I mean, we're not quite in the Arctic Circle for quite a way, but like there is like going into June.
It takes a lot longer for the sun to go down here.
Yeah,
and from now until June, and then about a month after that, the light doesn't completely go away. It just kind of travels along the horizon before it comes back up again.
Yeah, it just sort of skims this part of the Earth,
which I suppose is why we get a bit of aurora borealis sometimes.
Do we?
Yeah, we do sometimes. Yeah,
all right.
Not a huge amount, but.
I was really wanting to see that when we went, like by plane up to Iceland.
Yeah, it would have been good,
but I think it was pretty cloudy and didn't see anything. But
anyway, are we going to be anywhere near wrapping up?
I mean, we could talk at length, I think, for more, but I think we've sort of reached a point of both drunkenness and point in this conversation where we're going to be repeating ourselves and not really being sure what to say next a fair amount.
So, do you think are we going to be anywhere near drawing to a close? Do you think?
I mean, I guess if you want to, you so clearly do.
No, I was repeating myself because you just said that you would be in danger of repeating ourselves.
See, that's a funny thing with the like hidden rules of conversation being autistic. A lot of those, like, were really confusing at first because it's basically like
you've had to learn that, haven't you?
Like the whole flouting a maxim thing, which is basically sort of breaking a rule of conversation, but in a way that you expect people to. In some ways, notice.
You've got more tools to be able to deal with it than some autistic people, though, because you being sort of high functioning in autism, you've got, even though you haven't had those tools to kind of, things have been more literal to you.
I guess.
But you've had the intellect, I think, to kind of analyze and work things out and have like some kind of.
I think it's more the issues that I've had, particularly in the past, is almost more. I understood those social rules once they were explained to me. I just didn't get the people breaking them because people don't follow those rules.
No,
most of the time, to be honest, we're constantly breaking them.
Yeah,
and just being fucking random and human.
Yeah.
And that's confusing. I mean, for anyone, but like it caused me distress, and that's what I think caused me jacked out.
But that's a bit like, I mean, like with me, if plans suddenly change, it takes a little while to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, I still get issues that, it's sort of thing where, like, I'm never going to be cured of autism, and I wouldn't want to be.
No, but I think you get better at dealing with, if something, say if plans suddenly change in the very near future and you have to cope with it and you start feeling anxious about it, it helps to be able to recognize that anxiety and know what has caused it, because then you can give yourself a little bit of leeway to readjust.
So I get this really weird feeling, and it's sort of hard to explain. And I get it loads. I remember getting it particularly when I was younger, and this, I think, caused a lot of sort of anger and emotional outbursts that you guys couldn't understand, because there wasn't like any clear cause that you could see externally, but like what was causing it was internal for me.
Yeah.
Where I get sort of what feels like literally a pit in my stomach.
Yeah.
Where like it feels like my organs have flattened and it just feels like something's missing there. It's empty, it's hollow, it's just it's just sort of that feeling. Yeah, just
you don't eat a lot.
It's well, no, but like
you have you identified hunger?
I don't think it's that. It just turns
Bring
out
me donut.
Just angry all the time. But no, it's just sort of this. I guess you would describe it as like butterflies in your stomach, but like it's not in a like, oh, that's cute, it's wonderful. It's like, no, it's just a pit of death, it's just despair. It's just nah.
I don't think the microphone would. Oh, I feel dizzy now.
Okay, I think we're gonna probably have to go before I suffocate.
Yeah. I hope it wasn't too depressing. If anything has affected you, cheer up, codger. No, I didn't mean it like that.
Should we post like phone numbers for things to contact in the description? I don't know.
Samaritans are a good one. I phoned them once from a phone box, and they listened. I wanted answers. But I didn't need them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
it helps to talk.
Yeah.
Even, in fact, especially if nobody's going to try and solve your problem. One of the things that me and Mum both suffer from is feeling that we want to solve everyone's problems, and you can't. People have to solve their own problems, but they do need to.
Isn't that just being a good parent, though?
What?
Just feeling like you want to try and solve
not
everyone's
when it's
problem.
like when it's other people. Like
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though.
But there is that sort of thing of
like life's not as easy as people. Some people try to. People try to sort of just chin up and get on with it, but actually, life can be quite hard.
Well, that's one of the worst fucking parts of our like British stoicism.
And there's nothing wrong with it being hard. People just need to. Are you being rude?
So sorry. It's hard to ignore.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, let's fuck off. Because I need a beer, I need a piss, and I need some humour in my life.
I think. I mean, it was a bit serious in parts. This, and I nearly started crying watching the video because it does get the suicide one. It does get pretty emotional.
Yes, it does.
But yeah, I think towards the end of this, we just started laughing a bit more. And
have we got anything? Do you know what the next episode's on?
I don't know.
Will it be on the calendar?
Possibly.
Should I have a look?
Yeah.
Should we mention it?
I think I know.
Do you? Is it
Let's not mention it. Let's make it a surprise.
Is it
Anyway, any last words? That sounds a bit final, doesn't it?
Alas, poor Yorick.
What's that from?
I don't know.
Yorick. It's a Shakespeare character,
Isn't it? Isn't he holding a skull? In that one as well?
It's.
I knew him well.
It's a skull of Yorick, isn't it?
I would imagine so. Imagine so. Now let's go. I want to go.
Do you have any final thoughts to leave our listeners with?
No.
Well, alrighty then. Yeah, I mean, just a last note, I guess. All you people, keep yourself alive. And with that, I've been Firebolt.
I've been Nobody.
And this has been Breaking Bollocks, episode 59.
Depression.
We've got a lot of episodes of this, haven't we? 59 episodes and
Yeah. That's 7 more than the number of weeks in a year.
Woohoo. Are you doing maths?
I've got to go. I need a piss. Say something to end off the afterbirth.
Wank.
This podcast is part of the After Dark Podcast Network.